D&D is a game all about inclusivity, patience, and rolling with the punches. But what happens when your patience for a game goes out the window? Or rolling with the punches makes you more of a doormat? In the case of inclusivity though, some people come and go. It's sometimes nice to add new people into your games, especially if they really add something to the table. Of course, that could come with some obvious downsides. So today's story is all about the hazards of joining a team between two arcs. Thank you so much for coming along, my friend. But before we get into today's video, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and comment down below what you thought about today's story. It really helps support the channel and it's absolutely free. Regardless, here's a cute little monster for you. Now look at him.
朋友是一个坚韧不拔的纪录片，在香港这座城市的设置。
Today's story was written by u/Pyrostones, and it's about the potential downsides of a player joining between two arcs. So let's get into it. Already a member of a TTRPG group, I was proposed to join another game by one of my co-players. I would join a team already in a 2-year campaign, and they were just finishing an arc, so it was the perfect timing for me to join. The DM seemed enthusiastic, and we met so that I could create my character with him. As I was planning to go the social route, he proposed that I would be a diplomat sent to the kingdom we would start in to prepare a war against the Dark Forces, and I was totally on board with that. Also, the team was already pretty high level. Can't remember exactly how high, so I was starting with a fresh new strong character, and I loved it. Coming from a noble family, I asked if I had any magical items on me. Based on my status and a pure roll of luck, I got an amulet to give me a sweet charisma boost. To that, he added that I came from a people where nobility is used to riding griffins, so he also gave me one of those. I found it absolutely insane, and I couldn't wait to start playing. Alright, let's pause for 2 seconds there. This is a really good way to introduce a character into a new campaign. Not only during the character creation process do you get to learn more about each other, not only your humors and stuff as a DM and a player, but you also get to bounce off cool ideas with each other, and this is exactly what happened here. Giving your player an item that gives them a charisma boost, especially when they're wanting to be a social or a diplomatic class or fill a role of that sort within the party, is an amazing thing to do, and this DM really made this player feel included. Seriously, if there's anything I've seen in my time of being a DM and a player, it's that joining new tables or adding people to new tables can sometimes make them feel a little bit lackluster in comparison to the people who are already playing. It's important to make them feel as strong and powerful, of course not as much as the people who have been interactive with your campaign or have been as interactive with the world that you've built, but it's still a really good idea to make sure that they feel included within the party and able to do something. So far, it sounds like a really good start to a campaign. So let's see what went wrong. First game came. So we were 8 players, not counting the DM. I find it a huge number of players for everyone to be happy playing, but I didn't mention it. We started in an embassy, which was perfect for my circumstances, but we started with groups of 2. Everyone was isolated with another player, and everyone would take turns playing their roleplay. So, 4 groups, each playing entire pieces of roleplay, 2 at a time. I'm talking 15 minutes of RP, so basically waiting a full hour before playing anything, as the new player, DM made me go last with my friend on multiple rounds. We spent something like 2 to 3 hours just watching everyone talk one after the other. And of course, being new, and with the very few information that I had, my turn ended pretty fast. Pausing again just there. Much like I said in the previous video, feel free to check that out by the way if you haven't. Splitting the party is never really a good idea and can often lead to other players not feeling included within the game or long waiting times, such as in this example. Especially when tables consist of 8 players, that's not including the DM, so a 9-player table overall. Personally, I like to keep my tables at a maximum of 7 players, including me as the DM. So, 1 DM, 6 players. Usually, I aim to go for around the 5-player mark, but sometimes someone just really adds something. In my experience, having 5 players at the table with 1 DM is the perfect amount of players, each person adding something new to the table, and everybody usually covering some sort of basis that everyone wants to, without really stepping on anyone else's toes. 8 players, however, is a lot of players, especially when counting the DM. Your table is full of 9 different people. There's a lot of room for some toe treading there, and sessions will typically be a lot longer, especially if you're including combats or splitting the party, like in this case. As a general recommendation, try to keep your parties from a 4-player to a 6-player size maximum, which does include the DM. Of course, you can play your game however you like, just as long as everyone's having fun and no one's getting bored for a long period of time. But back to the post. At first, as I felt it was getting long, I started talking with my friend right next to me. Low voice so not to disturb the RP, and she didn't seem to find it a problem. DM, on the other hand, shut it down really fast, saying that we could talk between each others, but only on RP matters. So I first started asking about their adventures, but being new to the world, there wasn't much I could respond with. So I learned about their story, I gave my bit from what the information I was given, and that was it. For the rest, we had to stay silent to prevent our DM from getting angry at us, and I must say, we weren't the only ones who tried to talk, and everyone was also met with the same reaction, which I found weird as they were supposed to be used to playing with each other. Eventually, we all regrouped, and the fun started. We gathered on the plaza in front of the embassy for an evening of fun, and DM pointed at me and told me that I saw someone I knew from my homeland. A man linked to the local mafia who used to make the link between the lower streets and the highest classes. Think drug, various pleasures, and of course, unofficial matters. He made me a sign to follow him, so I did. I ended up getting ambushed by mafia, who knocked me out and stole my amulet, with no luck of getting it back. You went into the undercity of a place you didn't know. What did you expect? Forgetting that he literally just brought me into it. Pause 2 seconds. So, first things first, this is definitely an at-the-table IRL type game as the players are able to actually talk with each other in a lower voice, not to disturb the RP. In my opinion, there's not much really wrong with players talking to each other as long as they're not necessarily in the scene. Of course, there's the respectfulness of keeping a low voice, which this person says they did. So I personally don't see the problem, especially if their character's not there, as that can really lead to some fun role-playing moments between people in the party, exchanging information that they might not necessarily have known to create more of an in-depth, in-world explanation from character to character. It's a different story if the character is there and they're not really paying attention when it is their turn, if you will, to speak, air quotations. But that didn't happen in this scenario. What did happen, however, was that the DM gave this new player a clue that something from their backstory, something that they possibly might be able to finally interact with properly, was around town, and led them a sign to come and get it. Unbeknownst to the player, it happened to be a trap. Now, this could be argued about the semantics of course it could happen, it's a realistic situation, but the fact of the matter is, this is a new player, they're not too integrated into your world just yet, and aren't really sure about how the systems work. In my opinion, it's probably best to start them off a little bit easier than getting them beat up in the back of an alleyway by a mafia that they supposedly knew about, and then taking away their item that gave them their extra charisma. Taking items away from players, especially newer players that have just gotten an item that you put forward, that you created specifically for their character, with them, can come across as very demoralizing for that player. The comment that they made also made it seem a little bit passive-aggressive, telling a player that you went into the undercity of a place that you didn't know, what did you expect, especially when the player is new. It's very difficult for the player or anyone to come to any sense or reason with that. Just because the player doesn't necessarily know the ins and outs of a city or how the world works doesn't mean that their character wouldn't. If you're going to do this, and it's a big if, as you shouldn't necessarily really do this with newer players or just players in general, but if you're going to do this, you should definitely give your players a heads up and give them a small failsafe. Someone with them, some roles, just so that they feel like they have a chance to at least get out of that situation, rather than making their agency completely defunct by just letting the thing happen to them, especially if it's a negative thing. This can make the player feel like their agency or their choices are taken away, which for a lot of people is a big no-no. But enough of my rambling for now, let's get back to the post. Then we started our adventure, and we were almost immediately attacked. The convoy was wiped, my griffin killed, and we were separated again. We rejoined quicker this time, and after reaching our next stop, we got word that I was declared killed. I went to a local leader to say that I was alive and to send word to my family that I was alright. Quote, "What proof do you have about who you claim to be?" End quote. My knowledge, my family seal, my relations, and a lot of things that wouldn't sound like anything to him but would immediately click for anyone knowing me. He sent me away, so I went to look for a pigeon that would transport my message. There was none. Only mounted couriers will transport mail, and they were all busy with war preparation, and we didn't have time to stay here longer as our mission was waiting for us, so we left and ended the session soon after. My thought was naturally that one of my new goals would be to clear my name and show that I was still alive, so I talked about it with the DM after the game, and he just went, "Oh no, you won't have time for that, you'll be way too focused on your mission. But we will stay in some cities in which I could use the most basic of services to send words home." To which he answered, "Then you'll find out that your younger brother replaced you immediately as the family needed an heir, so you are no longer required." Could I fight my brother to get my position back? No. Now your life is the group. Wow. Yes, pausing the post right there. Wow, indeed. So, as there's not many, if at all any, pros in this situation, let's point out a lot of the cons. First of all, the party were immediately attacked, and this isn't an issue. Of course, multiple combats and attacks happen within D&D, and combat is often one of the biggest ways to get your party and keep them engaged, especially for some parties who like to throw spells and hit big monsters with swords and weaponry and roll big damage and stuff, which is also really fun, right? But the thing here is that the convoy was completely wiped out, the new player had their griffin killed, effectively leaving them with absolutely nothing after the first session, after getting what appeared to be some pretty cool items due to just existing in their background. And yet again, the party of 8 players gets separated. The pros, I suppose, would be that they did rejoin quicker, but going back onto the cons, the DM yet again seemed to have taken all choice and agency away from this player. They couldn't prove who they were due to some sort of basic service not being available, and they couldn't even fight their brother or have any sort of arc about redemption or finding their name or a plethora of the other cool ideas that I'm sure a lot of other people can think of. Instead, the DM in this story decided that the player couldn't even really use basic messenger pigeon services to send a letter home to prove who they were, and in fact, the DM technically spoiled any sort of story or backstory arc that this character might have had by just outright saying, "Then you'll find out that your younger brother replaced you immediately as the family needed an heir, so you are no longer required." This person's entire backstory and character within the first session has just been completely wiped clean, and now they'll have to find a new goal, a new reason to be within the world, a new reason to really be on the table, just because the DM, for some reason, seemingly didn't want to give them much of anything, taking away pretty much everything that this player had. Their items, their pet or griffin in this scenario, their identity, and definitely their morale, or else we wouldn't be reading this post here. Overall, seems like a pretty bad situation, but let's see how it ends. He made me spend an hour and a half on character creation, gave me some amazing assets, only to take it all away at the first game and never talk about it again. Wow. We could have gone on a Mr. Nobody, but he preferred to give me a good character and let me watch him destroy it immediately. All that after spending hours in silence because he wouldn't accept any chit-chat if it is not roleplay. I never went back to this group, and my friend apologized for introducing me to this table. Unfortunately, this story is one that doesn't seem to have a happy ending. The positive being that this player decided very, very quickly, as they should have, to leave the table, that they are not compatible with the players, or more specifically the DM in this case by the looks of it, and decided to take their leave. So good on them for doing so. This person definitely knows their limits, and their limits are to not be on this table by the looks of it. Personally, I feel like there may be some missing context, but maybe I'm just reading into it a little too deeply. Maybe the DM just didn't like the chit-chat and decided to have some sort of vendetta against our poster Pyrostones. Or maybe it's something deeper than that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Whilst the story had what seemed like a really good premise and the DM seemed really open and kind and incentivizing at first, something happened within that small time frame of the player joining, or possibly during the session, that caused the DM to just ruin it all, I suppose. Losing a player at their table, although that might be a good thing in the scheme of things considering their 8-player table, or I suppose now 7. But regardless, this person definitely knows where they stand, and hopefully it's something for you guys to look out for too. A cautionary tale, if you will. So with that all said and done, thank you for coming along and listening to the tale of the hazards of joining a team between 2 arcs. Do you agree with the opinions that I made? Do you disagree? Tell me what you think in the comment section below. Remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Take care now, my friend. Bye bye.
主演钱德勒、罗欧斯、福波斯尼、瑞秋、莫妮卡可以。
My time has come.